Here are your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
What's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Bloody Water Podcast. It's official. We have a new contender on the women's flyweight scene. Erin Cold-Blooded Blanchfield did something to Jessica Andrade that, first off, people on full camps, the highest contenders in the division, can't do to her. But at the same time, you do have to take into consideration, she said she was going to do it. She says, this is my game plan for everybody. I want the winner of Valentina and Alexa Grasso next. Give me a championship fight. Folks, Erin Blanchfield is like 23 years old. We're currently witnessing the ascension of a John Jones-esque character, a Conor McGregor-esque character, right? Like, these are these Israel Adesanya style bender moments that you see where they really rise up the charts. And you were officially on paper either with her or you weren't. And I have to say, I was one of the people who was not. I did not think she would pass the Jessica Andrade test, no matter what form of a short notice fight or a full training camp that she had. But the point is this. It doesn't matter if you was with her then, are you with her now? Because now this is where it gets interesting. When you're talking about fighting the bullet, we're going to have a lot to talk about. Folks, let me bring in my co-host, the Santa Fe bomber himself, the New Mexico native, AJ, brother, new player on the scene. How excited are you about it?
Ooh, Derick, how could you not be excited, man? Erin Blanchfield is the future. I like what you said. Cold-blooded Blanchfield, man. It was an amazing performance on Saturday. I'm right there with you. I wasn't on the train, but now I think she's got a lot of people to switch over to the Erin Blanchfield side. And this is the future, Derick, where I'm excited to see what happens with her going forward against Valentina. This is nice to see a shakeup in the division finally. I'm excited for it, man. And the rest of the card, interesting card too, man. It was an interesting Saturday night. How you feeling?
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm feeling definitely like I could have been better, right? Picks could have been better. The night kind of went a little awry. I want to mulligan on the William Knight pick. I mean, things just got really weird. We'll talk about that more in 1 second. But I did want to mention one of the things that stood out to me a lot. I know we saw them like size each other up in like the weigh-ins and stuff like that. But when Erin Blanchfield got in the cage, she made Jessica Andrade look so tiny. And when you look on paper, Erin Blanchfield's listed at 5'4". I know Andrade's like 5'1" or something like that. But she made her look like a small individual. Still said Andrade got that power and all that, but that's one of those factors right there where I'm like, Blanchfield is just so much larger than people. Speed, height, skill set. Oh man, it's gonna be dangerous. But you got to definitely just be happy that we have this new player, because she just went from number 10 to beating number 3, and she was scheduled to fight number 1 in Tyler Santos. So who knows? Maybe they put the Tyler Santos fight in front of her before, a title shot. We'll see what happens. But AJ, let's not mince any words. Let's talk about how we did this weekend, brother. All right, not our finest work, but we did hit on a couple of the newcomers, right? Zac Pauga and Jamal Pogues. Missed on Andrade, missed on William Knight. Once again, I want to mulligan on that one. We're going to talk about that further in a second. And in what was a very valiant effort, we did miss on the Jim Miller pick. Let's actually talk about that really quickly, man. Just a couple of sentences on that. First off, mad respect to Alexander the Great Ape Hernandez. He did something that I just didn't think he'd be able to do, man. He went 3 rounds. He was composed. He was patient. He wasn't that first round blitzed killer that we've been accustomed to. And he said it in his post-fight preview or post-fight presser. He said, hey, I wanted to let you guys know I'm more than just a first round fighter. So he put that on full display against a dude who has the most fights in the UFC's history and like most wins in UFC history. Impressive, brother. What did you think about that one?
Very impressed with Alexander, the Great, man, or the Great Ape. He changed his nickname, man. Yeah. Very impressed, man. This is a fight that none of us, or at least me personally, was highly doubting Hernandez in this one, and he proved that he's the real deal. He said in his post-fight, he's like, I'm a vet now. I've gone through, I've taken my licks, I've done the stuff. He's here, and he proved it. He's willing to stand in with the big dogs. I'm excited to see him, man. It's been a long time coming for Hernandez.
That's right. And unfortunately, he did then follow that with saying, yeah, but I'm going back down to 145. So I was like, yeah. All right, that's fine. All right, man. And then so we're looking at the money line, 2-3 a pop for us, 0-5 on the prop bets, man. We're going to have to take a look into the accountability mirror in 1 second. But the overall total, 13, 10, and 2, aka 0 and 0, aka AJ. We dropped down to 56% respectively. So we're going to have to bring that up next week. No questions asked. But let's talk about these props really quickly. Any ones that we came remotely close to for the Pogues decision, I was just like, man, Jamal Pogues, brother, like he had speed advantage. He was piecing him up on the feet. When he was on the ground, he could have had a lot of TKO opportunities, but he grinded him out for a decision. Not what you want to see as a heavyweight, man. You're not really going to make too many waves just racking up decisions as a heavyweight, as we've seen with others, but a win is a win is a win. And lastly, AJ, Zac Pauga. no TKO. Just kind of grind him up against the cage and beat him up, bloody him up, and then just get a decision. First man ever to take Jordan Wright past 2 rounds, let alone a decision. So it's just like, what are the odds? But thoughts?
That's why I said an interesting night, Derick. A lot of the time when you bloody up your opponent, you attack that same spot over and over again, get the doctor to step in. Pauga decided to, push his body up against him and hang out, which pushed Jordan Wright, and admittedly a safe move. We'll talk a little bit more about it later. A safe move for Pauga against a dangerous man like Wright, but interesting tactic nonetheless.
I think it was the right move. It just cost me my TKO prize. So on the night where I pick everyone to get finished, nobody gets finished, right? On the main card at least. Folks, listen. It happens. Off nights happens. We're going to be back next week with a little more of a popular card back on action. You know what I'm saying. So if you haven't subscribed yet, you should definitely subscribe right now. If you're watching this video on YouTube, just click the subscribe button. If you're seeing this anywhere else, then of course, what are you doing? Go to youtube.com/freethinkers club and subscribe. But let's talk about some fights, brother. Let's get it.
Have you seen that replay, buddy? Your head was bouncing around like a pinball machine.
Time for some main card breakdown, courtesy of your hosts, Derick G and AJ. All right, man. First impressions of this fight. Erin Blanchfield stood in the pocket and traded with Jessica Andrade with little to no fear. Now, this means a couple different things, and we need to kind of talk about this. The first thing that this means is that, listen, man, she's going to be a little more formidable than we originally anticipated, because 2 fights ago in the JJ Aldridge fight, she was kind of getting pieced up by JJ Aldridge, right? Progresses to the next fight against Molly McCann, and she looks like a whole new fighter, sharp as attack, right? And then you come in against Andrade, and it's like, yo, you actually counter-striking Andrade, right? I'm going to touch on this in just one more second, but just give me your first thoughts on that.
My first thoughts when seeing her actually standing in the pocket, counter-striking with Andrade, she was taking a couple licks, rolling with the punches, so it even looked like she was getting hit harder, but doing exactly what you want to see a striker do, man. Looking crisp, like you said, Derek. Clean strikes, reading the shots, very impressed from Blanchfield. And when she was able to see her timing or see her opening, she would strike, and it was very impressive, man.
100%. And this is the thing that I noticed in this first round, right? Jessica Andrade was winging her shots, right? It's the Jessica Andrade style. Even the commentary booth, they're like, she needs to chuck her chin. I was like, do you not see Andrade do this every fight? She just swings and bangs, like reckless abandon, right? So she's getting calf kicked, right? She's throwing and she's missing on this big left hook over and over and over. I'm talking about, like, she probably threw it 30 times in the fight and missed like 25 times, right? So she keeps throwing it. And then Erin Blanchfield's getting out the way. And then I even tweeted, I was like, man, you know what? It's nice when you can stand in the pocket and trade with Jessica Andrade when you're not getting hit. And then Jessica Andrade landed. And then you saw Blanchfield immediately, like, you saw the eyes like, oh, shit, like, and then a couple steps back and then get onto the back foot. I was like, okay, so one thing that we learned about Blanchfield is that, one, she can overcome adversity, and she has a chin on her, bro, because a lot of these fighters were not able to take those shots. So she ate those shots from Jessica Andrade. And then when we come into the next round, right, she gets the takedown, and, it's pretty much over the moment she gets the takedown. I don't want to get too jiu-jitsu technical into this, but ultimately it comes down to this, man. When you have a fighter who is trying to either get their hooks into you and choke you at the same time, you have an option. They're giving you a choice to make. Either address the hooks or address the choke. You always address the choke first, and then you worry about the hooks. Jessica Andrade just did a mistake that I made many times, where while the choke and the hook are happening at the same time, I'm more worried about not letting you step over, and now you're cinched in on my throat. So by the time that Erin Blanchfield actually got the lion killer and got her arm across, it was over. And Blanchfield said it herself. She's like, the moment that she didn't address the choke soon enough. The moment I had it locked in, I knew the fight was over. And that's a great feeling in jiu-jitsu. I was just surprised against such a legend and just grappling herself that Blanchfield was able to do it to Andrade. So rant aside, man, real player in the game right here. And this is going to actually beg the question, is if she fought Tyler Santos, would she have kind of dismantled Tyler Santos in a grappling? Because Santos is legit on the ground too. What are your thoughts on that?
Santos is legit on the ground, but I think this is a good and a bad thing for Blanchfield, because now it let everybody know that she is also legit on the ground. She has some serious skills if you're able to take on Andrade. So now the rest of the division is going to be put on notice, like, oh, I can't underestimate her, which I think may have been what was going on with Andrade, underestimating her, thinking I have a better ground game, I don't have to worry so much. Next thing you know, it's tight. Yeah. Could be what happened. Who knows until Andrade actually says. But at least now the rest of the division is going to be keen to the sense that Blanchfield has some ground game. So we'll see, man, because I think the rest of everybody else is going to elevate their game now, too, when they're facing her.
Yeah, and it's just all little technical things, man. And that's how my brain works when I see it, because when Andrade was trying to get back up from off of her back, she went to her knees. That's something that wrestlers do. And when you get to your knees, what do you expose? Your back. That's how that whole situation kind of initiated. So, yeah, maybe Tyler Santos would play it a little bit different. Makes me really wonder if Santos was able to control Shevchenko the way that she did, and if Blanchfield can be successful against Santos, what can Blanchfield do against Shevchenko? This MMA math is what is propelling this conversation, right? So I don't want to be too crass here, but let's talk about that, man. If she fought Valentina Shevchenko, be honest with me right now, just like a true initial impression. You know how big of a Shevchenko fan I am. We know how legendary she is. We know she's at the stage of her career where if she's made look human, we almost think that she like fell off, right, for whatever reason. But do you think Erin Blanchfield can go from being number 10 in the world to number 3 to champion just in a span like that?
In 3 fights. The one thing that worries me, I think she'd actually have good success on the ground game. The one thing that worries me is precision in the in and out style that Shevchenko has in the hands. The speed she has, the precision, it's a whole nother level. And then she'll start throwing in some kicks. I think she's able to keep Blanchfield at bay. And when she does try to get a takedown, she's able to stop it, stuff the takedown, put the head in the mat, and keep it going. I don't know. What do you think, Derek?
I think it depends on which Shevchenko that we see, because the Shevchenko we saw against Tyler Santos wanted to beat her at her own game. She wanted to take Santos down multiple times, which is like, is that the game to really be playing? That's what, honestly, failed takedown attempts from Shevchenko is what led to those bad situations multiple times. So it just depends. Don't try to John Jones everybody and try to beat them at their own game. Just win the fight, right? But I don't know, man. It's tough for me to say, okay, Jessica Andrade is one thing. I hold her in very high accord. Shevchenko is a different level, bro. She loses to only the best of the best. She loses to the Amanda Nunez's of the world. That's it. Who else is she losing to? So I don't know, man. But I just know this one more time. We'll forever go down in history as the people who doubted Blanchfield on this aspect of her journey. But from this point on, you cannot doubt her, man. I was already super high on her before this one. It's just, no excuses. But fantastic win right here, man. Last question on this before we move on. Will she ever get the praise that she really deserves, man? Because Blanchfield is really living by that cold-blooded nickname, man. Very short on the mic, very short and concise, and not really giving us much to work with.
It's always a downfall when they don't take their time on the mic, Derek. Yes, because she's going to have to beat some serious killers, and I think she's going to have to give that respect. And I feel like in the women's division, they get a little bit of leeway as far as being crass on the mic. When it does happen, everybody's hyped, everybody's excited, but they don't demand it as much as they do like the heavyweights or anybody else. I could be wrong on that. Yeah. What do you think?
Well, I think that Erin Blanchfield is what Macy Barber was supposed to be, except without the talking, right? Because literally, Macy, I'm going to be the youngest champ. I got to count down on my phone. Like, Erin Blanchfield is doing all that, but just not talking about it. And it's like, but look at Macy Barber's probably more popular than Erin Blanchfield, but look at where they are respectively within their career. I mean, that is a good thing to know, man. This is the fight game, but this is also the entertainment business. So let's move on to the next one, but big things in the future for Erin Blanchfield. Listen, man, Zac the Ripper Pauga. I mean, he put it on Jordan Wright, and we just said it. Hey, this interesting, pin him up against the cage, bloody him up, and then hug him again, and then do that back and forth. Entertainment-wise, it might not be the most entertaining. I actually had people call this fight boring, and I was like, yeah, it's far from boring, man. If you knew what was at stake, right? Anytime Zac Pauga, he was trying to go with these like Greco-Roman type throws and trips because he's like, if I should go down for the double, Jordan Wright's going to elbow my head in. Remember, that's the conversation that we had. Literally, can you fault a Zac Pauga for literally doing everything right?
No, not at all. This is how you win the fight against a very dangerous striker. Take away the distance, push him up against a cage, and do not let him hit you. That's rule one, man. And he did exactly that. And even when he was able to have a little bit more offense and bloody him up, he showed control and didn't allow to see red and start swinging wild shots. He played a smart game. And if it was quote unquote boring to the casuals, then just learn how to fight somebody and it won't be as boring and you'd see the technical aspect about it.
What do you make of like towards round 3, right? End of round 3, where he kind of abandoned the game plan. He just started opening up on the feet, man. I was like, "Ooh, okay." Now I was like, first off, I was like, "Yo, this is like the worst time to give Jordan Wright an opportunity back into this fight." But also, he did go to show I can do more than simply just the game plan, right? Even though that's what I want to do, I can stand and I can bang with you. And he looked sharp, bro. Like Pauga looks. he looks good, man. And like in a way where his tough performance did not really put this on display. I knew he was probably the most skillful guy on the show, but to come in and to do this, I mean, I have very high expectations of him now.
I'm excited to see how high he goes, and I think it was the right time to take on Jordan Wright in a striking battle. He's tired. You've been wearing on him. He's bloody, sweaty going right now. And you're right, Pauga. I mean, in the same instance, he also just went through a 12-minute fight as well, so he's tired too. But he looked more crisp. He looked like he had more in the gas tank than Wright, which is a good thing because Wright's been in the business for at least 5 fights now. So this speaks levels for Pauga. I'm with you, Derek. I'm excited to see where they put this man next.
And here's the tough thing about this whole situation right here, man. It's that for a Jordan Wright, it's like, where do you go? You've lost 4 of your last 5 fights, and you've lost 5 of your last 6, and you've lost 6 of your last 7, if we're really going back that deep, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Or 6 of your last 8, excuse me. So it's like, where do we go here for Jordan Wright? Do we anticipate Jordan Wright's name to remain on the roster come the next week cuts?
I think so because he is an exciting fighter, but that's a hell of a resume working against him, unfortunately.
100%. I agree. I like Zac Pauga's style, though, man. I will just say that. I really do like his ability to either strike or wrestle with you. That Devin Clark style, except a little more fine-tuned, I guess you could say, here at 205. Be interesting to see where he goes from here. What do you think about this, though, man? Look at how that minus 160, looking back at it, that minus 160 TKO prop for Zac Pauga, and we're both like, how is this even possible? And somehow, some way, divine intervention, we got plus 450 for the decision prop. I mean, did you expect that? Did you really think someone was going to sleep here?
Derek, the props have been the bane of my existence this year so far, man. We're gonna have to do some paradigm shifting or something because no, I'm just happy it wasn't that plus 1,600 submission. Because as far as this whole week's been going, man, it could have been that,
Could have been rough, man. Could have been rough. Yes, sir. All right, brother. Jamal Pogues, man. Listen, D1 Jamal Pogues, let's get it, bro. I'll tell you this much. I saw those, those first UFC fight jitters are legitimate. They're real. He mentioned it himself. This was a dream come true for him. Those are his words. But Jamal Pogues looks so sharp on the feet, man. So fast, so crisp. But he mentioned something in his pre-fight presser that really stood out to me during the fight. Because I was wondering, I was like, Pogues, man, you're tagging him every time on the feet. Why aren't you just sticking on the feet? Why do you keep blast doubling this dude? Why do you keep trying to take him down? And I thought that would be a good game plan later in the fight, not quite as early, right? And the thing that stood out to me is he said it. He's like, I understand what I'm doing. I understand I'm moving up to 265. These are big boys. This is scary. These are scary guys. So I feel like he recognized and respected the power differential between him and Parisian, because Parisian push kicked him in the face like early in the fight, and from that point on, everything just kind of went a little more, all right, let's take a step back, let's chill a little bit, right? So maybe he's gonna have to grow into becoming a little more confident in his durability and his own power. But I just felt like that was the one thing missing from a pretty flawless performance, man. I feel like he should have stuck around on the feet a little bit more. What'd you think?
I think so. I agree with you, and I can see what he was mentioning, what you're referencing, Derek, because you taste a little bit of foot real early in the fight, man. Now you take a couple steps back, and you really have to evaluate, because moving up that weight class, it's not like moving up 45 to 55. You're going 205, where these boys are weighing in 265, and luckily, Parisian is a smaller kind of heavyweight around that 240, 250, but still a
no,
big,
sir, brother. Parisian came in at 264, baby. Let's go. Big boy.
That's it. To that point, man, even Parisian knew he had to gain a couple pounds to compete with these dudes because they are heavy, heavy throwers, man. And I think it was smart for Pogues to play the kind of fight he did, to take it the distance he needed to gain a little bit more confidence, because I agree with you. I think that's what he was lacking, is that confidence, knowing that he could also hit that hard. This is his first time in that weight class. He doesn't know that he's also part of that weight class. Now I think he does.
So can we admit as well, another, I think, player, man, in this division? We know heavyweight is very bare when it comes down to the top guys, the ranked guys. And I think Jamal Pogues can insert himself into that ranked scenario very quickly because of his attributes, man. This dude can wrestle. He can strike. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Like, what else do you want from the man? You know what I'm saying? He can take it wherever the fight needs to go. And to see his ability over the course of 15 minutes, this dude didn't just land like 1 or 2 takedowns and it's like, oh, I'm gassed. This dude landed 5 takedowns on like 8 or 9 attempts. Bruh, like, you don't see that at heavyweight. I'm not going to say this is, because obviously his game plan is much more balanced, but is this another like Curtis Blades-esque type guy?
Curtis Blades-esque with a little bit sharper hands to start, so he's going to grow into something a little better. I can see what you're talking about, Derek. And thinking about it going into, all right, is this guy ready for a top 15? Probably. Is he ready for a top 5? No, but anywhere in between that number 8 to number 15, that's an exciting matchup for Pogues to really get his career started. Because you're right, Derek. They're thirsty for some competition at the top, and they're thirsty for somebody to come in and say, hey, I'm taking everything y'all been working for. This is my division now. They don't have that at heavyweight. They have people vacating. They have people leaving. I know John Jones just came in and he's going to take over, but at least from that 8 to 10, it's pretty sparse.
Yeah, man, I'm really excited to see what's going to happen here with Jamal Pogues, but you can't discredit Josh Parisian here, man. This dude was game. He showed up. He actually won the striking battle, man. He outstruck Jamal Pogues, man. So goes to show that this dude, he definitely belongs in this class, but Jamal Pogues coming in, company debut. Beautiful thing to see. You got to love it. All right, man, let's move on to this next bout here. The dreaded William Knight, Marcin Prachnio fight. All right, man, so listen. I did some research, right? Did a little quick discovery before we hopped on here to talk about this. And everyone was wondering, William Knight, there's a couple scenarios. Either, one, the man threw the fight and was like, all right, I'm betting against myself, whatever the case may be, even though you can't even do that today in the UFC, right? Number 2, he's spending all his time lifting weights in the gym and not actually training, preparing for a fight. Or number 3, man, like he got beat up with some leg kicks and he just got immobilized and couldn't move. And it's probably a mixture of a lot of those things, but he came out and said, listen, and this is verbatim. He was like, I just went in there and I froze. I'm sorry, guys. This one's on me. Y'all didn't lose. I lost. I froze. And that happens. And to see a man of his stature, a big, scary guy like William Knight, man, you get in front of him. You don't want to get hit by that guy. For him to admit something like that, I think is very honorable, right? At the same time, the track record does not bode well. So, AJ, let's go over a couple of events that happened recently, right? So, William Knight, 2 fights ago, right? He was slated to fight, and I'm actually going to we're going to do this together right here. I'm going to bring this up. William Knight, 2 fights ago, he was slated to fight Maxime Grisham, right, at 205 pounds. He comes in about 12 pounds overweight, right, and still loses the fight. And then he fights Devin Clark at heavyweight, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, right? Ballooned up to about 250 pounds, right? Lost the fight. Now we come back to 205 pounds. And a lot of people sat here and said, I don't know or believe that William Knight can make 205 pounds. Well, he makes 205 pounds. But the question becomes, you made 205 pounds, stepped in the cage, and threw a grand total of 8 significant strikes through 15 minutes with no wrestling, 0 head strikes landed the entire fight. It's like a historic number at that point. So what is the point here, AJ? Let me ask you this, because we're not trying to kick a man when he's down, but what's the point of making that grueling cut to 205 to stand in the cage and get leg kicked like 50 times and do nothing about it?
What's the point? I mean, if there's any silver lining, it's you get half your pay, you get your show money. But that's really, it's a rough mental path that William Knight's probably going to be traveling right now. So I feel rough for him, because if you've ever been there, whether it's in a combat sense sport or a performance aspect or any kind of thing where you're putting yourself out there in front of people, sometimes you freeze. It's happened. It happens to everybody. It does. And the worst time for it to happen is when you're fighting another man and both of you in your underwear in front of live TV. So rough for William Knight, man. But this is I also want a mulligan, Derek, because I feel like everybody wants a mulligan on this one, even William Knight himself. This is a rough fight.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we'll talk about the next fight too, but it's back-to-back fighters who the storyline, I guess, is either overcoming or falling victim to performance anxiety, right? Alexander Hernandez said that's been blocking him up for a while. And then William Knight, clearly, call it freezing. You could be mean about it. It's performance anxiety, man. You get in front of a bunch of people and then you don't pull the trigger. It happens. It does happen. However, in a spot like this, it just looks bad because for Marcin, here, let's give a little bit of credit. Marcin Prachnio actually he was part of the reason why William Knight couldn't get off, right? He corralled him in the corner, he kept at bay, kept him at distance, and just hit him where he couldn't get hit back, right? So he said it. He was like, I saw William Knight trying to come through with the big right hand the whole entire fight. So what did I do? I just question mark kicked him. I calf kicked him a million times. I just didn't allow him to hit me. And with that being said, man, I mean, impressive performance overall by Marcin Prachnio, I guess, right? But you'd have to also imagine this is probably the easiest win of his career.
Yeah, this is you hitting a heavy bag. You know, in karate class, when you have your heavy bags and you're working on your combos, you just fake the jab, low kick, fake the jab, high kick, question mark kick. That's just what it was, and worked out perfectly for Prachnio.
Question: does William Knight remain on the UFC's roster after this week?
I don't think so, man. With that kind of historic performance, I think Uncle Dane is going to even tell him, man, if you're nervous about this, go somewhere else, perform, win some fights, and then come back, because he is a star in the making. Like, he has potential behind him. He has a following. He has a fan base. He's this big dude, all these muscles, very explosive. He has all the right mixture for a UFC star. It's just he needs to figure something out. That X factor is a necessary factor to win,
Do you remember Tom Breeze?
Tom Breeze?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you remember him, right? So he reason why he got very talented fighter, man, but he got cut from the company because of multiple bouts of pulling out last minute because of performance anxiety. I don't think Uncle Dana takes very well to guys who are suffering with that. So I have a feeling that William Knight will no longer be gracing the Octagon's roster after this point, man. But then you got a couple of different people who are going to probably get the boot, man. Lena Landsberg, she retired, right? So like we're kind of OSP gets knocked out. We're probably going to be having a little bit of a swath of, a little spring cleaning. All right, man. So one more time, Marcin Prachnio gets the unanimous decision win against William Knight. Plus 300 easiest over, 1.5 rounds you've ever seen in your entire life right there. All right, man. Let's talk about this one. Jim A10 Miller gets matched up with Alexander Hernandez. And what are we all asking ourselves? Alexander Hernandez is going to come out hot. Will Jim Miller be able to survive? The answer was absolutely. He was. And he actually won the first round. Jim Miller won the first round because Alexander Hernandez came out, what do you know, poised, patient, right? Not trying to take your head off with every shot. So that definitely worked into his favor. However, man, the thing that I didn't really anticipate, I knew Alexander Hernandez has good takedown defense, but Jim Miller really could not get a takedown on him. He also wasn't forcing the action, but he could not get that takedown until late in the fight when it didn't really matter at that point, or it was kind of too late. So that's the story. How impressed are you with the Alexander Hernandez's ability to keep the fight standing?
Extremely impressed, Derek, and not only with his ability to keep the fight standing, but with his entire kind of transformation he has taken as a fighter. I wish he wasn't going to go down to 145 because he proved he can hang with some of the big dogs in the 155-pound class. But the fact that Hernandez was able to kind of overcome all these issues he's been going for and stand in there and do it for that long and stay poised and calculated and controlled his emotions in there spoke levels to me, Derek, because this is a fighter we have seen go on a roller coaster of emotions, man. The highest of highs and the lowest of lows has happened to Alexander Hernandez, and he's finally coming into his form as a fighter. And this is one where it was such a good fight for both people. Like, I don't think you can't discredit Miller for this one, man. He gave it his all. He gave a good fight. And towards the end of the fight, that's when he started pushing more of the pace. But in the middle, he couldn't really do much because Alexander Hernandez was pushing so hard, man, and controlling his own kind of style of fight. So you love to see it. In my opinion, neither of these guys kind of lose any kind of motion or credit or anything. This was just a good fight, and good to see Hernandez kind of come back and give a good scrap in.
Yeah, I'd agree with you, man. I mean, Jim Miller, I think that he also proved to the people, it doesn't matter, put the young dogs against me, you know what I mean? I'm still here. I will be here for UFC 300. But for Alexander Hernandez, I think this spoke even larger volumes because when Jim Miller had Alexander Hernandez's neck with like 15 seconds left in the fight, Alexander Hernandez, first off, showed great poise and didn't just crumble in that moment. And when they asked him, what were you thinking in that moment? He was like, don't fuck this up. Just don't fuck this up. And it's like, it goes to show though, man, this dude's putting a lot of pressure on himself, right? So for him to be able to finally come out victorious after a couple of skids, it's a good spot. It's a good spot to be in. Jim Miller, of course, will be back, man. But I thought we're going to see Alexander Hernandez gas out Jim Miller, get on top of him, TKO him. We were a lot closer to that plus 450 12-15 submission prop right there for Jim Miller, man. But fantastic performance. Alexander Hernandez's hands look sharp. He was tagging up Miller, kind of beating the man up, pretty early on. A lot of people were saying this is like a dad and his son fighting in the front yard in Thanksgiving right here, man. Like, that's what this fight looks like. But this was a fun one. This was a fun one for sure. All right, AJ, let's jump into a couple of these prelims and let's see what we got going here, man. So the first fight that we need to talk about, man, that featured prelim that we were like, let's just kind of sit here and see what's going on. We know Evan Elder's legit. Let's see what this other guy is about. Bro, that was a great fight. And the crazy thing about it is that if you really were watching the fight, you probably had Evan Elder up on points before the fight got stopped. And Nazim Sadykhov, man, this is a dude who let's just say, admitted something in his post-fight presser that could cause some controversy here. So I don't know if you guys saw the cut on Evan Elder's eyebrow, but it was disgusting. It was deep, and the fight was rightfully stopped. But it was basically he got head kicked, and then the cut somehow got revealed, and then everyone was like, "Oh my God, we got to stop the fight." That cut didn't come from the kick. That cut came from a headbutt right before, or a clash of heads, I guess I should say. Clash of heads before the kick. But it got stopped regardless. So when you're that deep in the fight, because it was in the third round of the fight, at that point you've gone long enough, they would have did a technical decision. Who was up at that point in the fight because they're no longer able to continue. However, because it was due to a clash of heads, it would have been Evan Elder winning the fight. Like a no contest at this point would probably be the best that Sadykhov could hope for. But to admit that, I wondered, can they retroactively go back and be like, all right, well, we're taking your win away, and we're going to give that to Elder because technically he should have won. I mean, what do you think?
I'm interested to see if there's actual legitimate data because I feel like there has been instances in which this has happened. I mean, and the only one that legitimately comes to my mind is the Sugar State Athletic Commission disqualified the Chito Vera loss, so he's still undefeated. But again, that's the Sugar State Athletic Commission, not an actually sanctioned organization. But right. It kind of seems like there's something there, and it almost goes into the Mayra Bona Silva tap situation that we had. If stuff would have been switched or awry in that, would they go back and switch it when that's the right thing to do? Kind of the same thing here. Do you do the right thing and give each other? I don't know. It's a little gray. All the checks have probably already been divvied out. You can't just go back and be like, hey, do you mind paying us $3,000? We're gonna give it to the other guy. It's like, nah. So I don't think we're gonna see any retroactive things happen here. Do you?
The condolence here is that they got fight of the night, right? So both guys get $50K. So no, I hope so though. You would hope, right? You would hope I mean, this is an organized sport, man. Like, let's do the right thing. You got replay for a reason and all that, man. But really, what I wanted to point out is that this was a fun fight, bro. Like, this was literally, we got robbed of a fantastic third round. I was so amped up just talking about what a war, and then it gets stopped. And I was like, oh God, all right, that's fine. Either way, I'm excited to see both of these guys perform again. Sadykhov made an impressive debut in the scene right here. Now we need to talk about another fight, man. This was my sleeper. This is actually the only sleeper to go to a decision on the card, so apologies about that, but I think that there's bigger implications on this. Jamall Emmers, he fights Khusein Askhabov, man, and this is 23-0. I was like, look at Jamall Emmers. He don't care. He'll fight these guys, right? And he beats them. And a lot of people, I didn't know this, man. Maybe I'm at fault for not doing enough research. A lot of people are calling Askhabov's record into question. They're like, there's 23-0s and then there's 23-0s right here. Which one are you, right? And I think that the whole flack here is that there's and listen, man, I don't want to be mean. What do I know? But this is from the Twitter spheres. They're saying it's different when you're actually fighting somebody legit, not like a bicycle mechanic. You know what I'm saying? When you're just beating up these 20, for 23 fights, you're just beating up these cans, right? And Jamall Emmers, we know, is very time-tested, high-level competitor right here. Even though coming off a 2-year layoff, knee injury, got his knee blown up by Pat Sabatini heel hook, right? And he comes in, and Jamall Emmers basically puts it on Askhabov and shows that you're not no 23-0, bro. He was pretty much broken after round 2. My question is this, man. People were calling fraud out here on Askhabov. I thought Askhabov still had a valiant performance. Just when he started to see the fight truly was not going his way, we got a little, let's just say, out of character, right? You know what I mean? We kind of had a little bit of a tantrum. Was like, fuck it, well, whatever. I'll just lay here on my back, and then you have to do something. What do you make of performances like these? 23-0. Were you at all, did any questions come up in mind where you're like, this dude has 4 million followers on Instagram, 23-0, and I've never heard of him? Who is this guy?
Not as many red flags until I heard Laura Sanko and was it Paul Felder on the broadcast talking about it, and they said it was I was driving home from yoga at the time, and I was looking at it and I was like, I guess we didn't even talk about that at all because I didn't know he had that many followers on Instagram. So this guy, whether it's all real followers or not, it's easy to get them. But the 23 fights, you can't. I never want to discredit somebody because there's a difference in setting up your fights and picking cans versus you go in, you've been prepping for this fight, the guy withdraws and they say, hey, we need a backup fighter, and they pick somebody, and it's like, not your fault. That's not my fault that the other guy didn't there. I went out there and I did my job. You can't really get mad at him for that. But now with how the whole fight went, and I guess it even makes it more gray because Emmers didn't finish him. Emmers didn't knock him out. What was the last fighter we had that was also a little suspect? Big dude.
Morozov I know. Yeah, I know.
You know what I'm talking about. You know the name. He got finished. Where in this case, Askhabov was able to at least make it, the full 3 rounds. But was that Emmers being nice? Was it the tantrum? Was it just not fighting to not get knocked out? There's a lot going into it. I don't know.
Yeah, Emmers almost finished him at the end of the fight, too, though. Yeah. If he had a little more time, he probably would have got the finish. Either way, man, it goes to show Jamall Emmers was all like, listen, man, like, nobody knows who I am. This dude got all these followers. They know who I am now. And Jamall Emmers, I want to let you know, if you're watching this, we absolutely know who you are. We've known about you for a long time, brother. What are you talking about, man? But I get it. Because he came up with such a high trajectory, and then things really just kind of leveled out for a minute. Highs and lows in this sport, man. But it's just interesting when you see those types of situations, man. 23-1 now for Askhabov. We'll see how he bounces back. AJ, now to take a step back into a little bit of a sad moment here. OSP comes out, fights Felipe Lins. And I saw the classic, let's shell up against, the cage and just get beat up on by Felipe Lins in less than a minute, man. TKO. I always say, this sport, man, there are no fairy tales. All your favorite legends just get beat up at the end of their career, and nobody likes it. For an example, Diego Sanchez, bare knuckle fighting championship, fights former champion level boxer Austin Trout and just gets beat up in 4 rounds. It's just like, can we stop doing this? You know what I mean? And I think that this probably was the performance that the UFC says, all right, OSP, brother, it's time to go. My alternative is say give him old, slow 205ers who are on their way out. That's the alternative. Don't give him Felipe Lins, who's a dangerous fighter even though he's 37 years old. Give him legend fights, right? But I don't see that happening. What do you think, man? This is just sad. You grew up watching OSP. This dude is a monster, but not so much these days. What do you think?
Yeah, I think both in the OSP and the Diego Sanchez, we were all let them down by going into these kind of style of fights, man. I agree. I think there's some times where you need to just hang them up, and if not, take somebody on that's in the same kind of era that you are, because these young people, man, and we can go back to the Blanchfields, we can go back to multitude of fighters that are coming up. These dudes are killers, and even though Felipe Lins is 4 years his elder or his younger, he's still a killer, man, and he can do some dangerous things. Credit a 49-second knockout. Yeah, rough, man. I hope OSP finds another business aspect or something to keep it going, because this was a rough fight to watch, man. That's right.
And that's what you hope, right? That fighters are fighting because they want to fight, not because they have to fight, right? There's a difference between that. But in a kind of similar vein, man, let's talk about your sleeper, AJ Fletcher versus Themba Gorimbo, man. This was fun. Gorimbo came out offensive, grappling. I did not expect that. Took advantage of the 10-inch reach advantage that he had on Fletcher. But guess who jumps Gilly? It's not Gorimbo. I thought it would be Gorimbo. It's AJ Fletcher. Jumps Gilly after a nasty elbow. Cracks him with an elbow. Gorimbo jumps down for that double and snatched his neck, and that was over, man. And AJ Fletcher looked like a world beater right here. Finally got the big W right here. This dude's nasty, and you called it for the sleeper. What'd you make of it?
Man, I'm telling you, folks, this is the style of fights that get people excited, because Fletcher is also finally coming into his own. Gorimbo's a little unknown. That X factor's there. This dude has a 10-inch reach advantage. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, folks, this was there's a reason I chose this sleeper, because I knew it was going to be banging from the start. Good to see Fletcher go in and get his job done. But what I was happiest is that was a scrap from the jump, man.
100%, man. Now, this is where I was talking about in a similar vein. AJ Fletcher then announces in the post-fight presser, he was like, hey, bro, listen, I hope I get 50K bonus. I hope that this works out because I got probably about $100 left in my bank account. And after the hotel charges my card, I probably have less than that. So what does it mean to you when you see these dudes in the limelight? Everybody, they think if you're on TV, you're rich and famous and shit like that, right? But these guys are really getting it, man. Like out here, especially in Vegas, you see all the fighters, they're just grinding, bro. And they're just trying to get by. A lot of dudes, I mean, you might have to take the bus to wrestling practice, you know what I mean? You might have to go and get a ride from the homie or something like that. Like, when you're in a spot like that, it's kill or be killed, right? And he even said it. He was like, I bet on myself and I believe in myself. And even if I would have lost, I would have figured out a way to keep going, right? How bad is the dream worth it, in your opinion, AJ? And obviously, I say this, we're spectators here, right? I do jiu-jitsu, but I'm not an MMA fighter. That's different, right? An MMA fighter, like these guys are putting it all on the line. There's not much. It's not a very lucrative sport. How much is this dream truly worth it?
I mean, if you're in it, man, I do think it is worth it because there's nothing like that kind of aspect of competition and testing yourself and seeing who you are as a person stepping in there. But I would also say if you're doing it for money, get a money manager, get an accountant, get somebody who is watching your back that you trust to handle your finances. Because I know me and I know the style of people that are fighters aren't the most cautious when it comes to funds, if you will. You know, you do some elective accounting, if you will, man. So I'd say get a money manager, get somebody that's willing to have your back. There's a reason people are there to help you. Use the help. It's rough to see, man. Coming in $100 and you're fighting on national TV. It's rough to see, man.
Absolutely. But he got the win. He got his full check. We're in a good spot for now. All right, man. Let me talk about Clayton Carpenter. He got the big submission win over Juan Camilo Ronderos, man. And Clayton Carpenter is a bad man. Dana White Contender Series fight was a little shakier than it should have been, given how heavy of a favorite he was at that point. But he came in and he basically just steamrolled Ronderos. Keep an eye out on him. I actually want your thoughts, though. Mayra Bueno Silva fights Lena Landsberg, retires her, knee bars her, and a little bit of a lack of fight IQ. Lena Landsberg kind of stepped right into a knee bar. And we know one thing about Mayra Bueno Silva. We said it. If Lena Landsberg does not tap early, your limbs are going home. We're not having another Stephanie Egger situation. And Landsberg, like I said, she called it quits after. She says, I'm done. Thank you for supporting me, all that good stuff. For one, Mayra Bueno Silva calls out Raquel Pennington and or Miesha Tate. And I thought it was hilarious because Paul Felder could not understand what the hell she was saying. He was all like, oh, so you're trying to call out Juliana Pena. And she was just kept going. She was like, whatever, like anybody. But she clearly was calling out Rocky Pennington. She says, why does she deserve a title fight and I don't? She has, 5 wins. She doesn't finish anybody. I finish everybody. I'm over here. What are we talking about? Do you think Mayra Bueno Silva, if given a large enough test right now, a big test, right, like top 5 type opponent, do you think she can hang with those fighters right now?
Oh, in the ground, yeah. In the mix them up, yeah. We'll see how it starts and if she's able to kind of get that control, because we've seen Bueno Silva crumble under the bully kind of pressure. When she's not the one on the front foot, she struggles a little bit. So I'm interested to see it. I agree. I think there's no reason why she doesn't deserve the same thing other people have with less of a, at least less of a most recent career history, you know, because you can't go against Miesha Tate and her past. Pennington, too, also has an amazing past record, but at least in what they've done lately, Mayra Bueno Silva's in the conversation at least.
You got to think, man. Wins over Lena Landsberg, Egger, Wu Yanan. She had that draw against Montana De La Rosa, win over Mara Bohela, Jillian Robertson. Her only losses are Manon Fiorot and Marina Moroz, man. So, we'll see. All right, brother. That is a whole prelim pour-over, excuse me. Now let's jump into some rankings, brother. Let's talk about it. And I think we know what we're doing here today, man. We got to talk about the future, just kidding, the now of the women's flyweight division. Make it short and sweet for you right here, man. You take a look right here. It looks like you already did your edit for Erin Blanchfield, so we know where she stands in your book. Now, for me, I had her at number 10, just like the UFC did. Do I see her taking that number 3 spot? Well, she kind of has to at this point. But then, does it really make sense? Yeah, you beat Jessica Andrade, but then you got Alexa Grasso, who's challenging Valentina Shevchenko. So should she really take the 3 spot? You know what I mean? Or should Grasso go to 3 and then Blanchfield go to 4? Here's the question. You beat Andrade in an any fashion of Andrade beating her, that is respect, right? You have to put that. That's a feather in your cap. That's a notch in your belt. But there's 3 fighters that I think there's still a lot of questions about before we can get to Shevchenko. That's Santos, Fiorot, Grasso. Those are the fighters. Can she get past those fighters before she even reaches the Valentina Shevchenko? Because she calls for a winner of Shevchenko and Grasso, but who's to say she gets it? What do you think?
Well, I'll break it down because you see, like you said, Derek, I got to mine a little early this morning, man. But why I think Blanchfield takes a spot over the Andrade and the Grasso. One, yes, the Grasso is fighting Shevchenko, so there's that mix-em-up that is going to happen. So that there's going to be a change there right away. So I didn't feel too bad not including her so much right there, but I do agree with you. I think she's a very dangerous opponent. We're going to see how she handles Shevchenko. But the question that I have about the Grasso fight is the ground game and the pressure that Blanchfield is able to put on. If Grasso is not able to hit her with the punches and then really control the fight, Blanchfield is going to kind of start to have that downward pressure, and that's where we'll see how the ground game goes. What do you think? How does Grasso survive the ground game of Blanchfield? Does she have something there for her, or she keep piecing her up on the feet?
At this rate, it don't seem like anybody could survive the ground game of Erin Blanchfield. So it is tough, especially because Alexa Grasso is not a natural 125er, right? She moved up to 125. So, yeah, that would be interesting. I don't know, man. It's tough. The only one that I can sit here with certainty and say that I think it would be real tough back and forth is Tyler Santos, and we never got to see the fight. So almost in a way, man, it's almost like Andrade stepping in late notice was the best thing that could have happened in a way. But then again, I don't know. I don't want to discredit it because I said it was worse. Originally, that was my thought. I was like, oh, you got Andrade now? Oh, shit, good luck. But Tyler Santos, I mean, ultimately, man, is there anybody oh, look, I got Jessica Andrade here twice on this list. We're going to have to fix that. Anyways, is there anybody here, AJ, on this list that you think could give a good shot to Erin Blanchfield? Don't forget, Casey O'Neill is healthy again. She's coming back, right?
That's the one I was about to point out, Derek. Casey O'Neill, maybe Macy Barber in a couple different fights, but man, that King Casey O'Neill fight is just begging to happen for a lot of people, man. That's a dark horse, and not a lot of people. Well, since her last fight, a lot of people are hyped up now, but before that, man, not really. So.
And I don't want to burst anybody's bubble here. I love me some good old Erin Blanchfield, but you know who's coming back to the flyweight division, right? Tatiana Suarez, baby. Let's go. Let's not forget about our future champion over here. Suarez, man, as soon as she comes back, she gets back in action. As long as she's that same fighter, if not a better fighter, y'all better watch out. I'll just say that. All right, folks, that is your rankings review here. Now, AJ, brother, this was a card, and we tried to give it its, put our best foot forward here on this card, but, it was what it was, right? So we need to bounce back next week, and we have a fun fight to bounce back on, and we're talking about Ryan Superman Spann versus Nikita Krylov. 2 finishers. This could go a plethora of different ways. If it goes long, I could definitely see Krylov getting the better of Spann. If Krylov runs into anything that Spann hits him with, especially because they say now Spann is training, it could be a short night. It'll be fun. We're going to need to get back on track for sure. But yeah, brother, I mean, with that being said, what you got for me before we get up out of here?
Yeah, man, that's an interesting card. And I mean, I don't know if you did it on purpose, but a little foreshadowing there. Tatiana Suarez is on that card with Montana De La Rosa.
Trying to tell you, brother, she's coming back, man.
Shake them up all around, Derek. Man, I'm excited to break it down with you. This week's card was also interesting, but nonetheless, it's a learning experience. You can't always go with history. Sometimes fighters are in there to change history, and we saw it happen in the Hernandez fight, another couple fights, man. Either way, folks, you already know where to get the most information right there. Write these links right down below. And like Derek said earlier, Jamall Emmers, if you're listening, or if there's any other fighters out there you don't feel respected or heard of, man, we've been talking about you for months and months and months now. We know who you are, and there's a reason we're your favorite fighter's favorite fight show, because we have all the information y'all looking for to win y'all some money, man. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, like you already know. Also, check me out on Twitch. If you're watching this on Monday, I'm probably already streaming if you're getting done with work. So go check out the Twitch stream, twitch.tv/Santa Fe Bomber. You already know.
That's right. And listen, if there was a mic that if I could pick up this mic and just drop it right now, I would, because that was fantastic. That's it for us, folks. Catch us on Monday for the post show, of course, when this episode comes out, but on Friday for the preview of the next one. Let's get it, folks. Until next time. Peace.